Hello. As far as I can see, we just started, so I hope you can hear me and see me well and see my screen as well. Is everything okay? Please write message in live streaming channel. Okay, very nice. So, long time no seen. I hope you are doing well. Previous task was not so easy, but I hope it was useful for you. So you just had a chance to touch GraphQL, and it's very nice experience, I think. And meanwhile, we are moving to the final part of our course. Starting from this task, we will work on gradual improvement of the same service. So now we will need to create, let's say, some basis for subsequent improvements. We will need to implement a REST service which implements, let's say, all necessary business logic that we need to follow. And we will improve stuff based on this solution. So I don't have a demo for you, but I think that description and scoring are pretty clear. So you can ask your questions if you have some during this session or in the chat after stream. So I think we will just discuss what you are expected to do. We need to implement service which operates with some entities or models. We have users. Users are you. When you use application, you can create, read, update, or delete data related with artists, tracks, and albums, and you can add them to favorites. So we are implementing something like a home library for your favorite media stuff. You should create repository from template. It's here. So we will take a look at this template later, what it contains. But you can click use this template, create new repository, and you need to name your repository according to this pattern. So Node.js, our course identifier dash service. And this is how full link to your repository must looks like. This is very important, so please pay attention to this. If we are talking about models, we have a couple of fields in each model. Each entity has its own ID, its UUID. You are already familiar with this. You know how to create this ID. You know how to validate it. We already worked with this in other tasks. Our users have login, password, version. It means version of this entity, created at and updated at timestamps. So created at is timestamp of creation of entity, and updated at is timestamp of last update. So on each update you should not touch created at, and you should update updated at. Pretty obvious, but I think I still need to highlight it. What else do we have here? We have artist with ID as well. It has name and Boolean flag which means whether this artist has Grammy or not. Also, we have track with attributes. It also has ID, it has name, and it has reference to other entities. Specifically, it has reference to artist using its ID, and it has reference to album using its ID. And also we have album, which contains ID, name, year, and reference to artist ID. We also have favorites. This model contains IDs of our favorites artists, albums, and tracks. So this reference can be string or null. We will discuss later in which cases it can be null. But in case if it's string, it refers to existing entity. This is important, so please pay attention to this as well. We have description for our endpoints, in which case it should return which status code and what is expected. For example, if you get all users, you always should have status code 200 and all users records, or empty array, for example. If you get one user, it's pretty similar to how it worked in Simple CRUD API. You have all these standard statuses. Also, you can create user, and here you have example of how your create user DTO should look like. Please pay attention that we use DTOs in NestJS. So this is shape of your data transfer object. Also, you have all those standard statuses here. You have possibility to update user's password. You need to provide old password and new password for this case, and you have listed all those statuses and situations when they should be returned. And you can delete user as well. You can do some basic CRUD operations with tracks, artists, albums, and so on. And you also have endpoint for favorites. You should get all favorites with just get faves, and you can add track to favorites, you can add album to favorites, you can add artist to favorites, and you can delete every entity from favorites. And you have listed status codes as well. As a very first increment, you should use in-memory database. You already know what it means. Your data is stored in some like array or something else, but in next task you will use real database, so you should separate your functionality. You should split your data into modules, taking into account that you will change your data source later. Also, for request and response body, we use application JSON content type. It's important, don't forget to set corresponding headers. Also, of course, I propose you to split logic, to have some layers, because this is a REST service, and NestJS provides you with some basic structure like controllers, services, and so on, and I highly advise you to follow these best practices. Also, you should exclude user's password from server response, so when you return user, those users shouldn't have password in object that your service returns. Also, when you delete artist, album, or track, because it has references via its ID in different entities. So in this case, those references should be cleared and the corresponding ID should be replaced with null. And you have example how it should work. For example, you have albums and tracks where you have artist ID of certain artist. You delete this artist and this artist ID is deleted from favorites and it's deleted if it would be album and track. So it's in album and track it's replaced with null. From favorites it's simply deleted. Same logic for other entities. Also, if you want to add some entity to favorites, it should present in your service. So if you will try to add artist, album or track which is not present, you should have this response. This is code unprocessable entity. This is not only one valid code for this kind of situation, but still this logic should be also covered by your implementation. You use npm start command to run service. Service runs on 4000 port by default. Port value stored in .env file. It's familiar for you. Your incoming request should be validated in order to respond with, for example, bad request status codes. And NestJS provides good API for DTO validation on schema level. And you can use OpenAPI file in doc folder to perform requests and test your application. And you have small hint, you can use random UUID from crypto package, or you can use UUID package to generate ID. What do we have in scoring? Scoring is pretty basic, so you need to check manually only that your repository has README, that you have splitted code related to interactions with certain entity into some modules, and you have plus 10 points for each successfully passed test. Also, if port value is stored into .env file and it changes when you change it there, you have plus 10 points for this. And if you fixed OpenAPI spec in doc folder, it also gives you plus 20 points. You shouldn't change tests. So if you change everything or something in already provided tests, it's minus tons of points. So please don't change anything. It's crucial in order to take your score. We have forfeit for commits after deadline. We have forfeits for no separate development branch, for no pull request description is incorrect, for linter error, and if you have less than 3 commits in the development branch. This is pretty familiar to you as well. Maybe you have some questions at this point. Favs are not user specific, they are general for everyone, right? Yes. It's expected that it works for everyone. Should we generate OpenAPI with Swagger decorator, so we have to update docs.yaml manually? You know, you can use Swagger decorators, but I would kindly ask you to create a YAML file. You can generate OpenAPI spec in YAML from Swagger decorators. So if you will use those decorators, it it would be nice to update file as well. Should we use only npm run test? Yes, at this point you should use npm run test. Let's probably take a look at template. I will show you what do we have here. So you have a couple of scripts there, and you have two scripts related with tests. You have script test and you have script test aus. At this point, you don't need test aus because you didn't implemented authorization and authentication. You should run only basic tests. These tests don't take into account authorization implementation, so you should use npm run test script. Yes. Tests that I mentioned, they are located in corresponding folder named test. You can take a look what is checked there. Sorry, I didn't install dependencies. Let's probably do it. Because I don't like those highlights. Tests are pretty straightforward. For example, we have a test for albums that you correctly get all albums, correctly get album by ID. You should get bad request response if you try to get album by invalid ID, which is not EU ID. You should have not found status code if you try to get some album that is not exists. Post should create album if you provided valid data, and it should respond with bad request in case of some invalid data. What else do we have here? Put should correctly update album, respond with bad request in case of invalid UUID and invalid data, and so on. Also, we have tests for the cases of deletion that it should be set to null. So you have covered all the necessary logic in tests, so you shouldn't validate this logic manually. You can copy other students' works during review, and you can just run tests. And if everything is working correctly, you can make assumptions that service is working correctly. At least it's enough for meeting acceptance criteria from assignment. What else do we have here? You have start and start def scripts. You have lint. You have build script. What else? You have .env example file from which you should create .env file. You have some basic NestJS template which doesn't contain anything useful for you. This is just like basic bootstrap. What should I mention here? You can update your packages. You can use packages you want. This task has no limitation regarding dependencies that you may use, so it's totally up to you. But please make sure that you have no conflicts in your dependencies and tests are passed well with your changes. That's mainly it. Yeah, you can use more recent versions, you can use older versions if you want, just please make sure that you didn't break anything. But now again, since it's only, no, again. Yes, this is correct calculation. And most likely we will reduce amount of score for this task. Probably it will be reduced to the half because it's too much for implementation of this task. But in order to make your scoring, make your review easier, for now we have coefficient 1 for this task. This may change later. I highly recommend you to use NestJS documentation. For example, you can check overview and fundamentals chapters. It contains a lot of information for you. It's very well, so you can just take these examples and use it to build your implementation. By the way, I would like to recommend you to pay attention at CLI because NestJS has very cool CLI and you can generate crude endpoints in one command line command. So you will only need to write your logic. You will not need to spend a lot of time on writing a lot of boilerplate code. So please get familiar with this. Exception, error handling, control, cancel, how it should be organized in terms of user password change. If we are supposed to throw HTTP exceptions in the controller, not in service. I think that from my point of view, it's better to throw HTTP exceptions in the controller because it's controller scope of responsibility. Server just should let controller know what happened. How code should be organized in terms of user password change? In terms of user password change. To be honest, I don't fully get what exactly you mean here, but okay. We provide password on creation of user and we are able to update user's password. So if you have Sorry, probably I don't get your question because, okay, you just check your request and throw corresponding HTTP error and NestJS returns proper status based on what error you have thrown. It's pretty basic. Regarding how code should be organized, you have example here. You have your root module, which contains module file, it contains controller, it contains service. So you can create nested files here and nested folders, which will provide you with corresponding structure. Maybe now we call db, make sure the user exists. Second, to compare passwords. Yes. Why do you need to call second time to compare password? If you get existing user, you will have okay, at service level, you can have your password. You just shouldn't return user with password to response. But of course, when you get your user from your in-memory database, you will have passwords there. You shouldn't take user multiple times. Yeah. Yes, you can get rid of password on creation your response DTO. If I remember correctly, you even have some like decorator for this. to omit certain fields. You are not prohibited with working with your data. You just shouldn't expose password. Let's probably take a look. I can provide you with example what we can generate. And you will see how it looks like. The creator. For example, we can generate NestJS resource users. We can choose REST API. Yes, I want to generate CRUD endpoints. So NestJS did it for us. It just added user module to imports, and we have folder users here, and we have users module, we have user service, and we have user controller, and we have a folder for corresponding create for corresponding data transfer objects for entities. You can apply, for example, class validator for this user class, and you even have boilerplate for tests. So you have all basic endpoints covered by these methods. You have corresponding decorators here from NestJS, and it's fully functional. You only need to remove this and replace it with your logic. And this is what structure NestJS provides to us. You have a nested folder for corresponding endpoint. If you want to have some stuff for, let's say, tracks, you can create an endpoint for tracks, and it will be imported to your main module as well. And all exported stuff from this module will be available here. So it's pretty basic. Of course, you can do it manually, but I highly recommend you to use CLI for creation of boilerplate. It's very convenient. One more, timestamps and versioning command. Do the database can handle something automatically? Yes. But your tests will expect not date object and not date string. It will expect numeric timestamp. So please pay attention to this. You will need to do it manually for now, and later you can rely on database timestamps. What icons do you use? Materials icons are ugly compared to this. Oh, I use some icons package as far as I remember. Yeah, it's VS Code icons. I can probably share a link with you. I like it better, to be honest. I like it more. Naming convention question. Should it be users or user module? It should be user. Yes, users was just an example. It's a good practice to have same namings in folders like your endpoint. So of course it would be better to name it user. By the way, what endpoint will be handled is defined here. So what you will provide to your decorator, this is what endpoint will be handled. But of course, you should have here the same name as here. because it's misleading. Nest rename users to user in entities dir. Let's check. It's pretty smart in this case. Probably it, yeah, probably it knows about multiple entities naming versus single entity. NestJS docs and RESTful API suggest to have a plural form, I believe. Not really. It depends on your conventions. So, according to this task description, you have to use user. Do we have any other questions? By the way, I have one small reminder for you. We are constantly looking into cheating stuff, like someone steal some other students' works. We have like automated solution for finding such cases, and we will expel cheaters and I just wanted to remind you that it can happen not exactly after you steal other students' work, so please don't do that, because most likely we will find you and expel from the course. So just wanted to remind. This is how it handles this. Create players, user. Okay. Can you tell us more about schedule for next tasks? Will it be task 3 before task 2? As far as I remember, all the tasks will last for 1 week. Let's check. If we have some inconsistencies here. Oh, we have error here. It's mixed up. Of course, part 2 should be before part 3. I will fix schedule, but all tasks are expected to take 1 week, and that's basically it. So you have 3 tasks and 3 weeks for this. If you will have some extra time after you implement solution of first task, I highly recommend you to start looking into next task, especially if you are not familiar with databases and Postgres and Docker and some stuff, because it may be not so easy for you to fit into 1 week timeline. Okay. As far as I can see, we have no other questions. Was glad to see you after some break. So have some fun and good luck. Bye.